Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're so glad that you could join us today for our afternoon session on New England cuisine. My name is Heidi Roth. I'm a registered dietitian and health coach, and I'm so glad that you could join me here today in my kitchen. I do have my computer open in front of me, so if you see me looking down, I am looking at the chat. I see we already have a good afternoon. Good afternoon to you as well. So we'll be together for half an hour, and this is a great time to ask some questions while I'm talking. So please feel free. Don't be shy about doing that. All right. So what are we going to be making for New England cuisine? So two things that typically are typical to New England is number one, we're going to be making a New England clam chowder. And then we're also going to be making some energy bites for Marathon Monday, right? I think the marathon is next Monday, right? Patriots Day is this weekend. And Patriots Day is a really big day this weekend because it's the 250th anniversary. So in honor of the marathon, we're going to be making some energy bites, and we're going to be making them especially a New England style with the addition of some cranberries. So with that, let's get started. And don't forget, don't be shy about asking questions as well in the chat. So with New England style clam chowder, typically it starts with some sort of smoked bacon, or sometimes they use different types. I actually have 2 slabs of bacon in here that I've cut, and I've already started frying, and I've browned them so they're ready to go. If you wanted to make this more of a pescatarian type of dish, not quite vegetarian with the clams, of course, you could skip the bacon, but the bacon does provide a really nice smokiness to the chowder. So now I'm going to add in about 3/4 cup of onion. I've got half of a very large onion here, and I thought I would show you real quick about how I cut onions. For those of you who've attended one of my food demos before, you probably remember, but it's always good to have a refresher. So first of all, we're going to hold our knife like we're shaking hands with it. This gives you a lot of control. And now I'm going to come along and make some horizontal cuts in my onion. Lie it flat. And you'll see that here at the end, I've kept the stem, the core. So that's going to help to kind of keep everything all together. Now I'm going to make some vertical cuts. And you can see, for the most part, the onion is still kind of all held up. Still held together. Sometimes it holds together a little bit more than others. And now we're just going to come along the other way and make the rest of our cuts. Just always being careful of your fingers. This is such a large onion. I'm going to have to do it this way. But keep your fingers in that kind of claw position so that they're all tucked in and nice and safe. Oh, this onion is so big. One of the things that I do is I like to have my garbage next to me while I cook. And that way, I'm not always running back and forth to the sink. I think, sometimes if you watch the cooking shows, like Rachel Ray was always famous for having her garbage bowl. You can do that too. Especially if you compost, it's nice to have a bowl to put all your compost in. Okay, so now I've got my onion. I'm going to add it in. You could also add in leeks. Leeks would be delicious in this as well. But in this case, we're just going to use onion. And this is a very, very simple clam chowder. It's basically just going to be the clams, their juice, onions, bacon, a little bit of thyme, and some potatoes. And then, of course, the milk. So I'm just going to kind of let those get tender a little bit, and then we'll add in our potatoes and let them simmer. So I'm going to add in my potatoes. I've already diced my potatoes here. You can see all nicely diced, and I have them in some water. Potatoes oxidize very, very quickly. So if you want to do them in advance, put them in some water. That'll prevent that oxidation. But pretty much as soon as they touch that air, they turn brown. So we don't want that. So So that's why I kept it in the water. Now, that oxidation isn't bad. It's fine if your potatoes turn a little bit brown, not the end of the world, but it's not going to look very pretty. And it's kind of going to give a little bit of a gray pallor, a little bit to your clam chowder. So that's not a good thing. So what are the healthy things in this clam chowder? What are the things that are really going to provide that nutrition? Is number one, the onions or leeks or whatever you're planning on using. Onions are a wonderful source of fiber and a particular type of prebiotic fiber for your gut microbiome. And onions are very high in a plant compound called quercetin, and quercetin is very good for supporting your immune system. So two really great benefits of the onions. Now you could make the case for everything that we're adding, but the other kind of nutrition superstar in the clam chowder is the clams themselves. So this recipe calls for 2 cups of chopped clams. And certainly you can buy the clams already kind of and steam them yourself and then shuck them, but it's really, really easy to just buy them already. This is a Bar Harbor brand of cut clams. It's very simple. They're delicious. You can get, I got these at Whole Foods, but you can get them at Market Basket. I buy these at Market Basket all the time. And in terms of nutrient density, clams, you know, when we're talking gram for gram, clams are one of the most nutrient dense foods that we know of. More nutrient dense than kale, more nutrient dense than blueberries. The amount of vitamins that clams have and minerals is kind of off the charts. There's only one food that's more nutrient dense than clams, and that's actually liver. Most of us aren't eating liver, so clams are a really great thing. But really, clams, mussels, you know, a lot of those mollusk type of seafood are just incredibly nutrient dense. Oysters are even better than clams. But if you're looking for an amazing source of zinc and B12, clams is your go-to. All right, so my onions are tender now. And so what I'm going to add in is the clam juice. So I took the cans, I drained the clams, and I have some clam juice left over. So I'm going to add that in. And now I'm going to add in 2 cups of milk. And if you wanted to do this dairy-free, you could. But you know, if you really want it to be dairy-free, I would probably choose like a Manhattan clam chowder, a tomato-based clam chowder, more so than trying to substitute a different type of dairy. I mean, you certainly could, and let me know if you do, how that turns out. But you know, I enjoy the Manhattan clam chowder too, which is completely dairy-free. It might be a better option. All right, so I've got my 2 cups of diced potatoes here. And we're going to add them in and just going to let this come to a boil and simmer until the potatoes are tender. Or until we're just about the end of our food demo today. So fingers crossed that that'll get going. And we're also going to add in some thyme. I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of dried thyme. And thyme is typically the herb that's used in clam chowder. Thyme in and of itself has some amazing nutritional benefits. Does anyone know what thyme is known for? Put it in the chat if you do. What is the herb thyme known for? Now, if this is summertime and you happen to have some fresh thyme in your garden, you want to triple it. So I added in a half teaspoon. You would want to add in one and a half teaspoons of fresh thyme. Typically, the ratio is 3 to 1 of fresh to dried. I'm just actually going to throw on my lid and get that simmering. So while that is simmering, you could chop your clams. I already have my clams chopped. You can buy the clams chopped already. but I prefer to buy them whole and then chop them myself because I feel like a lot of times when you buy them chopped already, sometimes they're really, really small and really finely diced. And so I kind of like a little bit more bite to my clam chowder. So that's why I buy the whole ones and chop them myself. So while we're waiting for our potatoes to get tender, let's make our energy bites. Does anyone make these energy bites? Have you made them before? So energy bites are great if you're running in the marathon, training for the marathon, but even if you're just looking for like a quick little pick-me-up afternoon snack, you can just, I keep mine in my freezer and you can just grab one. It's the perfect little, nice little snack that has some health benefits to it. So I'm going to start off by adding in 1 cup of rolled oats. You don't want the instant oats here. You're going to want the rolled oats. You also don't want steel cuts. Steel cuts are not going to get tender at all. One thing that I typically tend to do with my oats is I always buy my oats organic. I don't buy everything organic. A lot of fruits and vegetables, I don't bother buying organic. But the way oats are grown, they are one of the grains that potentially might be contaminated with some glyphosate. And the organic oats are just a little bit more expensive. They're not that much more expensive. And so you get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of buying these organic versus not. Now, if you can't afford organic, the other ones are fine as well. And there's a lot of people who argue that glyphosate is not a concern, but if it's there, I like to avoid it. Okay, so I've got my oats, and now we're going to put some sort of binder in your oats. For the binder, typically a great binder is some sort of nut butter. I'm going to use peanut butter, but you can use almond butter. You could make your own hazelnut butter, whatever type worked well for you. And then I'm also, now with a peanut butter, just on the side, on any sort of butter, you want to buy the peanut butter that is just peanuts and salt. Or if you're buying almond butter, it should be almonds and salt, or cashews and salt. Try not to buy the ones that you don't have to stir, right? The ones that have emulsifiers added to them. We want to kind of stay away from emulsifiers. There's a lot of studies that suggest that emulsifiers are not good for your gut microbiome. So whatever type of butter you're planning on using, try to get the ones with just the ground nuts, and you can get with and without salt. Okay. So somebody asked how much peanut butter. That was half a cup of peanut butter. And we're also going to add in now 1/2 cup of ground flaxseed. And in fact, I'm going to come over here and show you the recipe. And so if anybody wants to kind of take a screenshot of the recipe and follow along, you can do that. So everyone get that? Okay. So it's 1/2 cup of peanut butter. So far, 1 cup of rolled oats. We're going to add in 1/2 cup of ground flaxseed. And flax seeds, of course. Just want to make sure this is not boiling here. I'm going to boil over. So flax seeds, of course, are a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. Flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. Those are kind of the main plant sources of omega-3s. So really great to add them. But don't forget, flax seeds need to be ground. Otherwise, there's a good chance that they pass through completely undigested. So 1/2 cup of my flaxseed. You can add in a little bit of sweetener if you want. You can also skip the sweetener. The peanut butter will help to bind it together, but I might add a little bit more peanut butter if you choose to skip the sweetener. So I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of pure maple syrup, right? We're going to make this New England. So we're going to add in the real maple syrup for New England. but I'm not going to add in the whole quarter cup because I'm adding in some dried cranberries, and my dried cranberries have a little bit of sugar in them. So I want to keep this, not crazy high amounts of sugar. So I've got my maple syrup, and now I'm going to add in some dark chocolate chips. So these are 46% cocoa, and so they have a lot more chocolate chips now that are dark. Trader Joe's even sells one that's 72% cocoa. So the higher the percentage, the healthier they are. So I'm going to add in about half a cup of those. Yeah, whoop, one stray one here. All right, I see a question here. Somebody asked, is almond butter healthier? No, I would not make the argument that almond butter is healthier. All nuts have nutritional benefits. Different nuts have different amounts of nutrient or different types of vitamins and minerals. So, there's no need to eat one nut necessarily over another type of nut for nutritional benefits. Almonds are very high in vitamin E. So they are higher in peanuts in vitamin E. So that would be, one argument for almond butter, but peanut butter certainly has a lot of vitamins and minerals as well, some B vitamins. And so it's really just a matter of which one do you prefer, in terms of which one that you use. So lastly, I'm going to add in some vanilla extract. So I'm going to add in my 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I don't know what happened to my 1 teaspoon, but there we go. And going to add in a couple cranberries as well. Instead of you could just keep the cranberries out and not add them at all. Or you could add in some diced apricots. You could add in some dried cherries that were cut up. You could add in some raisins. So really, it's any type of nut butter, any type of dried fruit. You could add in some pumpkin seeds. That would be a nice addition as well. But be careful how much stuff you add in, because eventually it's not going to stick together. So you want it to kind of be cohesive so you can get it into balls. So mixed all that. I'll add in a little bit of my cranberries, a little bit extra sweetness. And of course, cranberries are very New England thing, right? Very Massachusetts. So we'll have them added. And I guess Wisconsin, they grow a lot of cranberries in Wisconsin too. All right. So this is kind of simmering here. And I'm just going to check and see. Oh, one thing that I didn't add to this was salt. So I'm just going to add a little bit of salt in. That still needs a little more time. So I'm going to add in about half a teaspoon of salt. But you can add in a little bit more or less. Okay, so this is still kind of simmering. I used a full fat milk because there's a lot of evidence now that dairy fat, even though it might be saturated, that there are a lot of potential benefits to dairy fat in terms of cardiometabolic benefits. So the American Heart Association still recommends low fat dairy. So you can make your choice in terms of if you wanted to use a low fat milk. But for me and my family, for the last 10 years or so, we've been using full fat dairy. And so it's, I think nutrition needs to be personalized in terms of what is, based on your medical history and what's going on with you. You kind of want to tailor it to what works for you. But for our family, I always buy full fat. I buy full fat milk. I buy full fat yogurt, just because of the studies that do suggest that there are some benefits to some of that dairy fat. So, that's kind of one of those things that can be personalized. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit of coconut, spread it out. And you could skip the coconut. You could take a little bit of cocoa powder. Cocoa powder certainly has a lot of health benefits. Basically, it's pure cocoa, right? So you're getting all the heart healthy benefits from that, all the antioxidants. So now we're just going to take some little scoops of and you can roll it in the coconut. You could chop up some almonds. That would be delicious too. Or you can just leave them as is and just, not roll them in anything. But they are a little sticky. And so that's why I like to roll them in something, either chopped nuts or something. And then I keep these in the freezer. So whenever I'm looking for maybe just, a little something sweet that's still somewhat healthy, it's kind of like the perfect little size to take and to kind of just satisfy that sweet tooth, but still have, some health benefits. But certainly if you are going on a long run, training for the marathon, right? This would be kind of a nice little snack to have maybe before your run. Depending if your stomach tolerates it or not, maybe during a run. But, for many people, this is obviously if you're worried about your time, you don't want to be running and eating a energy bite while, trying to cut down on your time. All right, so I've got a couple here and you can see what they look like. And they are delicious just kind of to put in the freezer. Oh, one more note that whatever type of butter that you're planning on using, I like to get the salted version because a little bit of salt is really good with that sweet. And believe it or not, a little bit of salt makes sweeter things taste sweeter. So it's a fun little experiment to try, making like a baked good or a dessert without any salt added to it. And you'll see that it's much sweeter with a little bit of salt added. So it's another way to help kind of decrease the sugar in your baked goods. To make things a little bit less sweet is to add a little salt, and that just kind of will highlight the flavors a little bit more. So my chowder is still kind of simmering. One of the things that you can do to thicken your chowder is a lot of times the recipe says to make a roux. A roux is basically mixing flour and butter together and then adding it in, and that kind of thickens it up. This is going to be a little bit of a thinner type of clam chowder. So if you like the really thick clam chowder, find a recipe that has a roux. This one though, this one says to do is actually to take your either a fork or this is a potato masher and mash up some of the potatoes. And so you don't have to mash all of them. You don't want it all mashed potatoes, but that kind of releases some of the starches, and that potato starch, once it's released from the potatoes, will also help to thicken it up a little bit. All right. So the last thing that we're going to add is our clams. So I've got my chopped clams here. And if you go clamming and have some fresh clams or, get them from your local store, that is going to be wonderful as well. All right. So I'm just going to stir that in. And then the last thing that you can add if you want, and once again, you don't have to, but if you wanted this to be a little creamier, you could add in half a cup of cream. I'm going to skip it. I like it just the way it is with just the milk. But if you wanted to be a little bit richer, you could certainly add in the half cup of cream as well. So the last thing that we're going to do before we serve this is to taste it. So what are we tasting for? I forgot we didn't add any pepper to it. So a little ground pepper. It's something that you're going to want to add. We added salt. But what we're tasting for is basically, does it have enough salt in it? Could it use a little bit of pepper in it? Could it use a little bit more time? It's always easier to add more salt than to take the salt away. So, and really once you add the clams, you should cook it for about 15 minutes more. But in the interest of time, we're going to call this done. Perfect amount of salt. So that's good. I used for mine, the recipe doesn't specify how much salt to use. It just says salt and freshly ground pepper. I used diamond salt. I used half a teaspoon of diamond salt. Anybody know the difference between diamond salt, diamond kosher salt, and Morton's kosher salt? So I'm going to serve a little bit of this. Put it in the chat if you do know the difference. Believe it or not, there is a difference. Okay, I'm going to come over and show you what this looks like, and then you all can chime in on what you think on the trivia question. All right, no answers on the trivia question. So the difference is, you would think that all kosher salt is kosher salt. But, so here, number one is what this looks like. I'm being very brave here, showing you this over my computer, my laptop. So that's what that looks like. And here is the recipe. This is a New York Times recipe. It's called Easy Clam Chowder. And you can do the screenshot if you want. You can also just go and look New York Times Easy Clam Chowder and find it there as well. But that is the recipe. Super easy, and it's nice in the summertime when we have lots of clams, but it's also a nice hearty winter soup to make as well. Going back to my somebody wants the energy recipe. Absolutely. So going back to the salt, the difference is, let's see, sorry, let me get this straightened out and then a little bit closer. How's that? It's the same recipe above and below. So you don't worry about what's below. It's just a repeat of what's on top. Everybody get that? All right. So the difference of the Morton salt and diamond salt is that Morton's, because of the way it's cut, it's denser. And so half a teaspoon of Morton salt is going to be almost twice as much sodium as diamond. So when you're following a recipe, assume that maybe they use diamond salt. And if you have Morton's, I would start by cutting the salt in half and then adding more, because a lot of recipes now are starting to say, hey, we made this recipe using diamond salt. It's a little frustrating. You would think that kosher salt is kosher salt, but no, they actually are going to be different. So just something to kind of keep in mind. All right, so looks like we're at the end of our food demo here, and we've got our energy bites that we've made. We've got our New England clam chowder. So happy Patriots Day to everyone, and happy 250th anniversary this year. Is anyone planning on going to any of the reenactments or events? I'm probably planning on going to Concord this Saturday. I've heard that they have all kinds of events there, so it should be fun. Any questions? Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your weekend too. And thank you guys for all your questions. And it's nice to, I can't see you there, but when you ask questions and comment, it makes it really nice for the presenter. So thank you for that. All right. Well, enjoy the weekend, and spring is here. So it's nice to have spring here.